The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Hello, welcome to Bobby and Ryan's Film Show. I'm Bobby.
I'm Ryan.
We're going to talk about Kubrick because he's just the greatest.
Yeah,
that's well.
That's it.
It's been, you could talk about him all day and people have, and so we're going to too. If you don't like it, go watch something else.
It's amazing. He hasn't made a movie since 1999, and people still talk about him like he's
contemporary.
Still working.
He hasn't done anything in so long. It sucks.
Because he's dead.
Alright. But
even if he was alive, though, he probably might not have a movie out by now.
It's true. He'd still be researching if he were alive.
Yeah, he would just every year, or after every movie, rather, it's just more years added to the time where he releases a new movie. It's like George Martin.
If digital cameras would have came out, and he would have been investigating those, and then by the time he was satisfied, 3D would have came out, and he'd be investigating that.
Yeah, well, just think of all the things that came out between Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut. There's the internet.
Oh, yeah. Like 5 presidencies, probably.
Right? He's like the tool of the cinema world.
Yeah.
I would say Kubrick's probably, in my view, probably the greatest filmmaker ever.
Most important.
Yeah. If it's not him, to me, it's Alfred Hitchcock. It's either one of those two.
I always say Kubrick did more for cinema than Comedy Central does for comedy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he doesn't have a very extensive catalog of films either.
No, it's
like 10 major films.
10 very distinct films, and that's it.
Mostly in different genres too, which is outstanding. Not too many other filmmakers could do that.
Yeah.
I think Spielberg was probably the second best.
Yeah. And I mean, he's in different genres, but I mean, there's the same running themes through all of them, as we all know.
Yeah, the
same motifs.
Humanization of man and all that. So he made essentially the same movie throughout different genres, almost.
Pretty much. Same shots. Same everything.
Yeah, he had a very distinct style of shooting that nobody could really replicate.
I heard people, but like in this video essay I just watched on him, where the narrator was saying that Kubrick never really had a distinct visual style, where it was just more like his stuff just all looked the same, and I was like, no, he had a very distinct visual style.
Yeah, I agree. You could cut out different scenes of his films and just put them side by side. They look the same. Mm-hmm. They don't look like anybody else's work either. And
it's amazing how he maintained that from between
the 60s to the 90s.
Yeah, but even between a film like Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut, where the way movies were made and looked changed so dramatically between what did Full Metal Jacket come out 1987?
Yeah.
And 1999, that 12 years. The 90s films had a very different look than 80s films, and Kubrick still maintained his own style.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket, I would say, is probably, I don't want to say least impressive visually, but it probably is. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just the time that it was made. Because, like you said, there was a specific style for that time, late 80s. Just the way that looked.
Just think, though, of being in the theater, just that opening continuous shot of Lee Ermey, just kind of walking in the square formation around all the recruits.
Oh, yeah.
And him screaming, it just kind of... You don't really need that much flair other than what you got.
Yeah, it wasn't a colorful movie like Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah,
or 2001, even Clockwork Orange. It's very dull and drab and kind of made war seem kind of boring, almost. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was the intention. I guess we should start talking at the end of his career and work our way towards the beginning.
That's a good way to start.
Eyes Wide Shut. I haven't seen that in a long time. I've been meaning to pick it up on Blu-ray, but it's just not in stores, and I don't feel like buying it online yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, Eyes Wide Shut is one of only 2 Kubrick movies that I didn't really care for when I first saw it. But now I think it's like one of his top movies.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's the same with a lot of people, too, because it just seems that when that came out, it almost alienated people in a way. Nobody really gravitated towards that. Maybe it was...
It was marketed in a weird way.
Yeah, it's a hard movie to really describe to people.
It's... People, when they say they don't like it, if I have to describe that movie, I always say it's a noir. Like, that's what it is. And there are so many noir motifs throughout the whole thing. Like,
there's no real genre to it. It's just like a character drama.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
this little journey this gentleman goes on in the middle.
Yeah, and it's not really like a story either. There aren't too many like external beats that lead into the next one. There's no like cause and effect to what's going on, and in like a great way, like in a defining way, like Die Hard, for example. I think it's one of his more just overall artistic movies. I think that might have maybe turned off his audience at the time, but now it seems a lot of people are recognizing it for what it is, which I think is a great movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think like why I like to think of it as a noir is because it just kind of goes from one thing to another. Where it's why is Tom Cruise's character seeing a dying patient, and then the next scene he's with a prostitute? Like, how did he get from that?
Yeah, it's almost like like he is trapped in that lifestyle.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I didn't see the whole movie all the way through. I saw it bits and pieces at a time. And I think, I don't know, maybe that kind of helped me appreciate it more because I think some of the scenes individually are every bit as good as the whole, maybe even better.
Right. Oh, and it really is, everybody says this, it really is like a dream-like film.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
To take in. Like, I don't know if it's just because, like, the Steadicam just naturally has a dream-like quality to it. And it's, I mean, like, the whole movie's pretty much shot with Steadicam, almost.
That and the just aimlessness of the plot.
Yeah. Where
nothing kind of really adds up the first time you see it. I mean, you could think about it, too, just like any Kubrick movie. Just, if you put a lot of thought into it, you could take so much away from it.
Yeah. One scene I just love to watch over and over is when he goes into the Sonata Cafe to see his friend playing the piano. It's just like it's just so cool the whole way everything comes together, like the music and the way. And the movie might be the most beautifully lit film ever. It was shot. I read that like it's pretty much just lit with China balls and practical lighting.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christmas lights, holiday decorations that are lit up.
And that's what lights the whole thing.
Yeah, in almost every scene you'll see that.
And they had to, I read, that in order to make that like come out in the film, like they had to develop the film through like a push process, it was called, where they had to develop it longer than normally in order to like pick up that low-level lighting that it has throughout the whole thing. But it's like the only movie that I can think of where I look at it, other than like maybe some things Malick has done with Magic Hour lighting, but like Eyes Wide Shut just looks like real life.
It does. It
doesn't look artificial at all.
No, it doesn't feel like a movie. I think Full Metal Jacket kind of feels like a movie at times.
Right.
Maybe that's just me. Eyes Wide Shut. It's an interesting movie for him to end his career on. I mean, I'm sure he kind of knew it would be his last movie. He was kind of up there in age when he was making it. He took a long time to make it, too. I think it held the world record for the longest film production consecutively.
Yeah, it was like 4 years it took to make it or something.
Yeah, for like a not heavy movie on visual effects or anything like that. It was just a long shoot.
Yeah.
That's just the way he worked.
And it was, I think, maybe not Tom Cruise's best role, but certainly Nicole Kidman's best performance I think I've ever seen in a film.
I agree.
And I think it's very overlooked, her performance in Eyes Wide Shut. The scene where they're like fighting in the bedroom together is just like, she's just so like venomous in that scene. And
Oh yeah. It's a role that required a lot of restraint from Tom Cruise, and that's not something you really saw from him at that point in his career.
yeah.
He was more famous for like Rain Man and Born on the 4th of July and Days of Thunder and like all those movies where he was
Top Gun, you know.
Oh yeah.
Not like and he was Tom Cruise, you know. He was the guy everybody wanted to be, and he's like very like emasculated in this film by Nicole Kidman in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he is not very. He feels submissive almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Where just everything happening around him and every person that he interacts with just has so much control over him, and he can't do much about it, and he doesn't really react to it.
He just kind of goes with it.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, he is reacting internally, and you see that in his acting and just the way the movie was shot.
And it's very much a movie, I think, of watching a man realize that he's made the wrong decision.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but it's just him making wrong decisions over and over and realizing that, and he tries to correct them. It just takes him deeper into this shithole that he's...
That is film noir. You do something wrong, and then you just go deeper and deeper as you try to fix this, and in order to do that, you have to go even deeper, and by the end, you just lost yourself.
But even, like, it's a noir in the ways that noirs are always about, like, the characters just going from place to place, interacting with different characters that really serve no overall purpose. It's just, like, they kind of, like, stand out in the little scenes that they're in. And that is Eyes Wide Shut. It's, you know, like, the guy who runs the costume shop, and then there's his friend who's the piano player, and then all the people at the orgy. Like, it's just...
Sidney Pollack.
Yeah, it's just, like, these weird characters that he keeps encountering. It's a very funny film, too.
I think all Kubrick's movies are funny.
Yeah.
I mean, 2001's, I think, is a comedy masterpiece. Every single movie he's made, there's at least one scene where I just laugh out loud, like, every single time I see it.
Yeah.
It just never gets less funny.
Like...
It's never, like, obvious comedy, like, in a trying to be funny way.
Yeah, no, I think Dr. Strangelove is the only one that...
Yeah,
tried to
that's
be funny.
a comedy.
But, like...
The rest of it's kind of subversive in a way, almost. Maybe A Clockwork Orange, too.
Yeah.
Is a little more outward with its comedy. But nevertheless, it's a dark comedy.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching A Clockwork Orange most of my life, and it's only until recently that I realized, wow, I'm rooting for a character and laughing at him as he breaks into somebody's house, assaults a guy, and rapes a woman. Why am I cheering for this? It's weird. Same with Lolita. Why do I care about this guy who's a pedophile? But
Kubrick, his protagonists weren't very likable at all.
yeah, no, there's not a likable bunch among them. Maybe
Paths of Glory.
Yeah.
Like that's a character
Spartacus.
doing the right thing. Yeah. Later on in his career, though, he just kind of didn't care about, like, if you liked the character or not.
Yeah, like, outside of the movie, you never would have liked these individuals.
No. Now, normally, with movies where I don't like the main character, I don't like the movie as a side effect of that, because I don't want to spend, like, 2-3 hours with a dick.
Yeah.
Like, Goodfellas, for example, I don't like Ray Liotta's character. I think Robert De Niro was wasted in that role. I think his character is wasted. He was, like... The character he played, De Niro, was the guy. Like, he was the kingpin of that whole operation, and he's just like a tertiary character in that movie, but I just don't like watching those people. But I'll watch Clockwork Orange, like, every day.
Yeah.
And never get sick of it.
No, never feel bad about rooting for them and liking it. It's like, these characters are my heroes.
I guess maybe Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut. He was a little more likable.
Very much so. And The thing about Eyes Wide Shut is that it wasn't marketed correctly. Like you said, it's very hard to know what it is. And you'll always find people who say different things about what it's supposed to be.
It's almost like a very toned down David Lynch film.
Yeah, but it's also a relationship drama too.
Yeah, right.
Which is often forgot about. But like, you can just watch it forever, and keep finding new stuff every time I see it.
Yeah, I think that's the same with most of his movies. There's so many different theories on like why he did certain things, why he shot this way, why this prop is there, and what this scene means.
I try not to read too much into that stuff. Like, is there symbolism in the set design?
Yeah, I mean, some people have valid claims. Others, they're looking for something and they want to find it. They're not actually looking at what's there and picking from that. They're like, because if you can watch, Teletubbies and find symbolism if you're looking hard enough. If that's what you want to find.
Yeah.
I think Kubrick, he did put a lot of things in his movies intentionally for audiences to find and like kind of figure out on their own. I think that's probably just as much fun as watching his movies.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I would say it's fair that if you are going to try to find like meaning in like the set design, definitely it's valid in a situation in The Shining where every time Jack Nicholson's talking to a ghost, there's a reflective surface near him.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's pretty...
Yeah. I heard about The Shining, too, is there was a scene where it's a real wide shot, like a high angle of Jack working on the typewriter, and he's... Like, everything in the frame is so symmetric, because Kubrick loved doing that, especially in The Shining. But Jack's chair is not centered at the table. He's kind of off to the side just a little bit, like a subtle amount, but where you could tell it was done that way intentionally.
Yeah.
Because everything else about the shots are so perfect. So maybe there's like a theory like Jack's not like right in the head. Like this is a point where he's starting to go a little nuts, so he's not centered on the chair anymore, or at the table rather.
It also, I always wonder like if he was like Scorsese, where he edited for performance, because I mean it's notorious how detail-oriented Kubrick was.
Oh yeah.
But there are so many like glaring continuity errors in a lot of his edits sometimes, especially much more later in his career, especially with The Shining, where like when Jack Nicholson's talking to Shelley Duvall in certain scenes, like he's cutting back and forth, and like there are literally shots when he keeps cutting back to Jack Nicholson where props will just disappear completely out of the scene. Like there's an entire table set disappears behind Jack Torrance in The Shining. Did you ever notice that?
I don't think so.
It's in the scene where when Shelley Duvall comes in to like talk to him while he's writing, and he gets mad. It's like the first time in the movie where we see him kind of like lose his temper. Yeah. There's like a table and chairs behind him. It's in the one shot. You cut back to Shelley Duvall and you cut back to him, then it's gone. You cut back to her, you come back to him, and it's there again. And it's like, I always wonder, like, is that something where it's like that's an intentional thing on his part, or if he was just editing it for performance?
Yeah, you never know.
Scorsese does.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where if you're looking for examples of Jack losing his mind in the blocking of the shots or in the placement of the props, like you could see something in that if you look hard enough, or it could just be a continuity error. You don't know.
That shows up a lot in A Clockwork Orange too. I know it's where props disappear. Again, I don't know if that's intentional, but it's part of the fun of it. And it's amazing how any other filmmaker that would be a mistake, and they're horrible. But with Kubrick, it's like, ooh, what's going on? He's onto something there. Like maybe he's too good to make a mistake.
Maybe it's because some of his symbolism at times is meant to be obvious. Like Full Metal Jacket, he has "Born to Kill" in the peace sign. There's even dialogue about what that means, like as part of the movie. So when you know to look for something or know to look deeper, know that there is another level that he's working on, that, it's not the surface.
Right.
That just kind of instinctually tells people, like, oh yeah, it's probably worth looking at a little more in depth.
Yeah. His use of music too. Like I think we've said this a lot of times in the past. Nobody uses music the way he does.
No, not at all.
And it's amazing how Eyes Wide Shut. It's these maybe 3 distinct orchestral pieces, a pop song, and this weird Indian music during the orgy scene.
That piano, weird little...
Just those few notes through the whole thing.
It just fits the tone of the movie so perfectly. Every movie that he's made, maybe from let's say Doctor Strangelove on, just use music in totally different ways that nobody really thought of before.
Oh god, yeah.
Because when you think of some of the classical pieces in 2001, you immediately associate that with outer space, and before that, nobody did.
Yeah, it's that's what everybody uses for. I always wonder if it's just because that was so perfect, or no matter what he would have used, that's what would have happened. If he was using jazz in outer space, that would be glorious.
I don't know.
I think I've always said that Kubrick's films have this tendency to end on what I call a negatively optimistic note. In Eyes Wide Shut, I just love how she decides that what they need to do to get back to normal is they just need to fuck. It's that's the way she uses to describe it. It's not we have to have sex or we have to make love. It's no, we have to fuck. It's they're still together, but they're just kind of just fucking.
It's a bit weird now.
Yeah.
So they did kind of find a resolution, but it's not perfect enough to get them back to where they started. Yeah,
they got some work to do, and he just always I think his movies always end on this optimistic note with a hint of we still got work to do.
Oh, that's Full Metal Jacket when they're all marching to the Mickey Mouse theme, and some of their team just got killed, but they got the enemy, and then they're all marching there, but the war's not over.
Yeah, no.
There's really nothing resolved at that point, except for that one small conflict that, in the grand scheme, meant nothing.
Yeah, so he's still alive, but he's still got a whole war to go through.
Was Full Metal Jacket that Kubrick described as the anti-war movie?
I think so, yeah.
And then was Paths of Glory was the war movie, something like that. I don't know. I mean, you could.
Paths of Glory was war from an administrator's point of view, whereas Full Metal Jacket was supposed to be war from the soldier's point of view.
That makes more sense, yeah. I mean, you could look at either film as anti-war or just a war movie in general with no specific point of view on it.
I think if he made a pro-war film, the closest would have been Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, there's war in a lot of his movies.
I think it's in. Yeah, it's in Paths of Glory. It's in Strangelove.
Spartacus?
Yeah, it's in Spartacus. It's in Barry Lyndon. It's Full Metal Jacket. It's amazing how he had the scope to go from a war movie and then just this little chambered noirish drama in Eyes Wide Shut. But then, before Eyes Wide Shut was Full Metal Jacket, which might be the most quotable movie ever.
The first half of that movie, I don't know anybody who doesn't know all of that dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, too, that maybe the movie wasn't as good in the second half. Or what do you think?
It's two completely different halves. I actually think the second half is more interesting than the first half because there's actually something going on.
It's much more dynamic. In the first half, it's just the recruits against the drill instructor, and they're trying to work their way up to this thing. But once they get there, there's a whole lot more going on.
Yeah. Like, in the first half is really just a punching bag for Vincent D'Onofrio, whereas the second half actually has Joker developing as a character and doing something rather than just watching the army yell at Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, just being a Joker.
Yeah.
There aren't too many movies that could pull that off. Just totally switch gears. Just kill somebody off halfway through, like Psycho.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's amazing. And there's a lot of theories out there, too, about how most of the first half is a dream scene as well. I've seen people argue where it's because of like the way certain scenes are lit indicate that it's a dream. And I've actually been convinced to the point where like Gomer Pyle actually doesn't kill himself or Hartman at all because of some of those theories and what they've said about a lot of it being a dream scene.
I never really thought of it like that. It could be, though. I mean, in Eyes Wide Shut, there were dream sequences going on, and like we said, that was a very dreamlike film just overall. Even in The Shining, you don't even know what's real half the time, like how to jack it out of the freezer.
That's the one thing in that movie that hints that there might actually be ghosts.
Yeah, or maybe like he wasn't even in there. He was just imagining that he was.
Yeah, I always thought, because he is knocked out when he goes in there. I mean, who knows, but
he could have just been knocked out and then left wherever he was.
Yeah.
I mean, is his wife really strong enough to pull him all that way, that dead weight?
I always felt that it was possible that she's the one who let him out of there. Because she does even say, like, I'm going to go check on him.
Yeah, there's so many, like, unanswered questions surrounding that one part of that movie that makes it so interesting. I think that's one of the keys that you really need for any good story, though, is you can't answer every question. You have to leave something open to think about later on. Because if you just tell everybody everything, then why think about it later?
It's interesting that the two things in The Shining that really leave it open to there are ghosts. Both scenes involve Grady. And the first is when he's in the bathroom and tells him that Danny is summoning Scatman Crothers, and that he has like this special ability. It's like Jack Nicholson's not imagining that. I don't think, like, or would he have known that about his son? But and he also, when Scatman Crothers shows up, Jack Nicholson doesn't play it like he was expecting him. He kind of like acts surprised when he hears him walking through the hall with, "Hello."
Yeah. Anybody here?
It might be one of my favorite shots ever. It's just however long that shot is, where we're behind him.
Oh, yeah, just that long tracking shot, following him down the hall.
Hello. Like Jack Nicholson just comes out from behind a pillar and kills him.
I love that Jack screams even before he jumps out. Just, oh! When I was younger, that would get me every time. Like, I had no idea when he was actually going to jump out.
Oh my god, that's the greatest thing ever. I want to pull that up real quick and look at that. Hello?
The Shining.
Here?
I think The Shining's a comedy, to be honest.
It's some of Shelley Duvall's reactions to Jack Nicholson, like, because he's such an odd-looking character in real life and in the movie.
Well, they turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Ullman phoned me up. He calls them Larry Dirker's garage.
That guy's cream, Doc.
How's the weather down there? I'm not in Miami, Dick. I'm not in Florida, Larry. I'm at the airport. Ullman phoned me up. They turned out to be complete unreliable assholes.
I'm supposed to go up there and see if they need to be replaced.
It's great. I love that Jack's reading, like, what's he reading, Playgirl? When he goes in for the interview?
Yeah. No, it's
so many weird things in that movie.
when they first get there and they meet up with them in the hallway.
Things moving in town. Drive carefully.
Oh God, how bad is this? People listening to us watching The Shining.
It's just that good.
Durkin's Auto Supply. Now, Larry Durkin is coming inside to get a phone call from Dick Halloran, who's at the airport.
I love how he shot this just all in one master shot. You don't even need coverage.
Hello, can I speak to Larry? Speaking. Hi, Larry. This is Dick. Dick Halloran. Dick, how you doing? How's the weather down there? I'm not in Florida, Larry. I'm calling from Stapleton Airport. What the hell you doing down there? Well, I just got in from Miami, and I got to get up to the Overlook today. What's the weather like up there? Well, the snowplows are keeping things moving in town, but the mountain roads are completely blocked. That means I'm going to need a snowcat to get up there, Larry. Can you fix me up with one?
The only purpose of the scene is so he gets the snowcat. So we know how he got there.
Larry, just between you and me, we got a very serious problem with the people who are taking care of the place. They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes. All of them told me last night.
The great thing about that is that he's right. Yeah, they pretty much were completely unreliable assholes.
Yeah, the whole time, like, as Jack's doing all this crazy stuff, like, we're not really... I know, for myself, I'm not, like, rooting for anybody else to, like, stop him.
Oh, I
really,
know.
really strange how a filmmaker could pull that off.
I love how, like, the lights, the hotel, like, were they actively going around turning lights off in the hotel? Because, like, the day and night, the way the lights are in the actual building. Now, Scatman Crothers is just walking aimlessly through the hotel.
This was a real hotel that they shot in?
No, I think they built this
Anybody
all.
here?
Only thing you hear is just the wind outside, very subtly in the back. Mix there.
Another thing Kubrick did better than anybody was sound design.
Mm-hmm.
With Danny's wheels going over the carpet.
Oh, I know. It blends in with the soundtrack. Oh, it's...
Hello? Anybody here?
The shot is so long. Just keeps going.
He yells before he comes out. He comes up with the greatest Kubrick face ever.
Right? The Kubrick glare. Jack Nicholson was made to play this
He
role.
really was. Anybody who thinks he was miscast in this just doesn't know anything. Danny, like an idiot, gets out of a... I want to keep this going because right now, the weirdest shot in history is coming up now. Shelley Duvall's running up the stairs in this blue part of the hotel with these almost expressionist-like shadows on the wall. And she, you hear this chanting in the soundtrack.
The set design is absolutely perfect.
These exaggerated shadows just add to the... Now she's looking down the hallway in a room where somebody in like a dog costume is blowing an old guy. And her reaction is just as creepy as what she sees.
It's one of those things that's just never explained.
Yeah.
You have no idea what that's supposed to mean or why that's happening, who those people are.
One thing I love about that is the guy in the dog costume. There's no ass to the costume. If you look closely, it's like that's funny. That movie's fucked up.
I think The Shining, easily one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Maybe top 5.
God, yeah. Definitely the scariest movie of all time, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Bar none.
Just the shot with the two sisters in the hallway, where in real life they're not twins, they're just dressed up to look like it, but wow, that was...
Yeah.
Come and play with us, Danny.
Yeah.
No thanks, I'm going to go run and hide.
Like, everything about that movie, like, it's like normally in horror films, it's like, if there were other people around or I wasn't alone, this wouldn't be so scary, but like everything they encounter is scary regardless.
Yeah, the atmosphere of that movie, just from the opening helicopter shot.
Yeah.
Just
terrifying.
It's perfect. And it's never overt in like a Hollywood way, where there's like scary music and it's not designed the way that modern horror movies are designed.
Yeah. Like just the and I'm glad that like I thought it was nuts when I was younger watching this stuff. Like I'd be hearing like I said with the with Danny's Big Wheel, where it's like the way the sound picks it up on the way it rolls on the floor, blending in with the soundtrack.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah.
And how that starts and stops, it really starts to like play with your mind.
Yeah. I'm glad that for as crazy it is, the movie Room 237 that came out, where it was just a bunch of people like us sitting around talking about The Shining. I'm glad that like other people kind of picked up on things like that, because it didn't make me seem crazy. Like, oh, other people are noticing this too.
There is a lot of crazy shit in that movie, though.
Oh, God,
Room 237. I would say like, I mean, there's maybe like a good 30% of it is like spot on.
Mm-hmm.
There's another maybe 30% that's totally batshit insane.
Oh God, yeah.
And the middle, like 30 whatever percent, is kind of could go either way.
Yeah. There's I always wanted to like do a doctoral thesis on the use of the dissolve transition, specifically in Kubrick's films, because he's the only filmmaker who I think knew how to properly use a dissolve. And I love in Room 237 when they're talking about like the idea of white people like destroying America and like tearing down forests and taking land, and there's the one dissolve. It's the exterior shot of the forest. It dissolves onto the guy mopping the floor over the trees, where it's like he is mopping up the landscape.
Even if that wasn't done on purpose, it still works. Like there's still like a meaning behind that.
And it still is another thing. It's like, oh God, other people are looking into. Like I'm not insane. Like other people are looking into this. I'm not alone on this. I always liked to what somebody says in Room 237 that the job interview scene just doesn't seem right, because it seems less like a job interview and more like what somebody thinks a job interview is, and I always felt that way too. It's like, oh, this is like too good to be true. Like this is how like a job interview would be.
Almost like a dream.
Yeah. It's like I'm invited in, I'm offered coffee, they're laughing at my jokes, we're having a good time. It's like, it's never what a job interview is like.
No, not at all.
It's too relaxed.
There were a couple interesting videos and I guess just general analysis done of the structural layout of like the Overlook Hotel, like the blueprint, and people were trying to figure out. I know Rob Ager's one, like the certain structural anomalies in the design of the hotel, like where characters walk at one point, and then you see that from a different angle later on in the movie, and it makes like the previous scene impossible, and all of that just really psychologically like adds to that atmosphere of the horror movie, where like things just aren't right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also like anybody
with, as they say, half a brain, can notice in the exterior shots of the Overlook there's no maze. In none of the wide shots of the hotel.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Why the maze is such an important part of the film. How they got away with not having a maze.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Any of the exterior shots is so mind-altering almost.
It's one of those things you never really notice till somebody tells you, and then now you can't not notice it.
Yeah.
Have you seen Barry Lyndon lately?
Yeah. I look at Barry Lyndon a lot, actually. It's one of my favorite of his films. It probably was probably my second favorite Kubrick film.
Really?
Yeah.
Second favorite?
Yeah.
I've only seen it once. But man, that movie is just so impressive, and it doesn't really get the recognition that like The Shining or 2001 does. It came out during that stretch of like Kubrick's most popular movies, just smack dab right in the middle, and people all just.
I bet it's his least watched movie.
Probably.
It doesn't call out, hey, watch me. You know, it's a 3-hour costume drama that's not really about anything.
It's not exciting at all.
Yeah.
Like when I watched it, I was paying most of the time paying attention to, like you said, the set design, the costumes, just the look of the movie, and how he wanted to take like Renaissance paintings like that look and put it on film.
Yeah.
And like that to me that's why I watched that movie.
Yeah, it's like the first time you watch it, you just kind of gotta like, you watch it just for the way it was made, and then when you go back and watch it again, it's like, then try to figure out what's going on in it. And it's another film, it's similar to Eyes Wide Shut in that it's really just about a guy going from place to place, interacting with different characters.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why a lot of people can't really get into it.
Yeah, nothing happens in the movie. It is literally like, it's just Ryan O'Neal going from place to place, interacting with people, and everything. The actual act of making how the movie came together just takes it to another level.
Oh yeah, without Kubrick directing, this movie would be just a disaster. Like nobody else could have done that and like pulled it off with that script.
Mm-hmm. And it he really does build. If you pay attention to the through line in it, he does build a legitimate dramatic conclusion to it, because we watch this guy go from nothing, build himself up into a noble figure, and then how it's ultimately the bad things he does all along the way that gets him to where he is just kind of all back, just turns on him, and his own downfall.
Yeah.
And
what I want to know is, how did he pull off that shot where it looked like he only had half a leg when he's getting into that carriage?
Yeah.
You can tell it's clearly Ryan O'Neal, the actor. How the hell did he do that in 1975?
It's the magic of movies, I guess. I don't know how he did that.
How the hell did he shoot with a lens with an f-stop of 0.7 and have any depth of, or anything in focus at all?
People say that there's no depth of field in it. I disagree. I really think yeah, it is shallow because of how turned down the aperture is, but how open the aperture is, but it's another one. It looks like I'm in the room. Nothing really seems too out of focus in it, and I guess this maybe just because it's all candlelit, and the candles just kind of zero in on what I should be looking at, but I don't really care so much about the surroundings.
Yeah, I watched a video about that lens specifically, where they showed clips from the movie, and I'm watching the blocking of the actors, and clearly some of them are further away from the camera than like one guy's sitting here and the other guy's sitting obviously further away from the camera, so he should be clearly out of focus, but he's not.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the camera that Kubrick used, because I know he kind of went out of his way in this in like this almost surreptitious manner to acquire the camera that he eventually put the lens on. He knew a guy who had access to this special kind of camera. I can't remember what it's called, but real old. It was just sitting in wherever in this room. Kubrick talked the guy into giving him, I think, 2 or 3 of them, and another guy came in to the first guy, and he's like, "What happened with those cameras?" He's like, "I gave him Stanley Kubrick." He's like, "Why did you do that? Like, those are priceless. Like, they're the most well-made cameras ever. Like, you can never replicate that."
And Kubrick took them and pretty much destroyed them to make his own thing out of them, right? Was it those cameras?
Yeah, one of them had to be destroyed in order for them to figure out how to mount the lens onto the camera.
Yeah, they couldn't put the lens on it, so he told them to
figure it out.
Yeah, they pretty much said it was impossible. Like, the camera and the lens didn't coincide with each other, and Kubrick was just like, "We'll break the camera so it will."
Yeah.
And it was like the most priceless camera ever made.
He had another one, though.
He didn't care.
The lens that Kubrick had, I think there were only 6 of them ever made.
Yeah, they were like NASA deep space lenses.
Yeah, they were developed by Carl Zeiss. I think 3 or 4 of them. Like, one of them was kept by the Zeiss company, I think. 3 of them went to NASA, and the other 2 were bought by Kubrick.
Went to Kubrick.
Yeah. And apparently they're still around, and you could rent them.
Really?
Yeah, for a day. It's like
$1 million.
$1,000. It's like $1,000 a day to rent this lens.
Get on that list. I wonder if anybody else uses them.
I don't even know. You probably need a special mount for the camera, like Kubrick invented.
I'd have to like break my DSLR to mount the lens on it. That's funny.
I think Barry Lyndon might be like one of the most beautifully shot movies ever.
Probably the most beautiful shot.
Yeah, I can't think of any other movie where you could just stare at in awe. You could just take scenes totally out of context and just be utterly enthralled by it.
Yeah, that's it is one of those movies too where you can just watch. Like, you don't have to watch it in order, even because of the episodic nature of it.
Oh yeah.
But it's another laugh out loud film. Just where like when he's in the army, he's picking fights with the one guy over because he gets the beaker with grease in it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a couple of years. I don't even remember that.
Oh yeah, they're having lunch and he asks the cup guy for like a new beaker because it has grease in it, and they all start making fun of him because he wants something like a little better.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Just kind of with the movie, like, kind of sums up the whole movie.
Yeah, just
one scene there.
Very thematic moment.
Yeah, just kind of want something better. They all laugh at him.
That's how if you listen to enough, like, commentaries, like director commentaries and interviews with writers, like, a lot of movies come about because somebody had an idea for one scene, and then the whole movie is built from that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how that started.
Who knows? Yeah, it could have. He really caught on with the greasy beaker scene.
You know what's interesting, though, is I think every Kubrick movie, with maybe a couple exceptions, maybe like 2 exceptions, were all based on books.
They're all based on books.
Oh yeah. No, The Killing wasn't based on a book, was it? Yeah, it was. It was, actually.
Clean Break or something it was called?
Yeah. I thought that was...
Let me tell you what we're going to do. One guy's going to be positioned here, another guy's going to be a shooter outside the track.
You get the best voice ever.
Yeah, he was the fucking coolest guy who ever lived.
Was it Jim Thompson co-wrote that? I know he was a super famous noir writer.
Yeah.
And then he wrote the Killing and Paths of Glory. I'm curious to see, like, if Kubrick adapted one of his novels, like what that would turn out to be like. Because a lot of Thompson's work was experimental, much in the same way that Kubrick's was. So I don't know. That's just something to think about.
Yeah.
I think I saw one adaptation of his work is The Killer Inside Me.
He tried to adapt that.
Hmm?
Kubrick tried to adapt that.
Did he? I know that's...
movie with Casey Affleck?
Oh, yeah. The movie was terrible.
Yeah. Kubrick tried to adapt that into a movie, but he couldn't.
Most of the movie is Jessica Alba totally naked. The movie's still unwatchable. Yeah, that's all I can say about that.
They thought they could just get away with that.
I didn't read the book yet, but I don't know. Maybe they just didn't get get the translation right.
Yeah. Something was probably missed. I'll have to read the book. I didn't like the movie.
I didn't either. I like The Killing and Paths of Glory though.
Oh god, yeah.
A book that I really want to read.
Yeah, stop saying.
That is apparently it's very short but it's not an easy read. Clockwork Orange. You read that?
Many times. It's very like I don't understand why the Anthony Burgess, who wrote the book, like hates Kubrick, hates the adaptation. It's a very faithful adaptation compared to other adaptations Kubrick has done.
Well, Stephen King hated The Shining so much he made his own version.
Yeah. It's the biggest mistake ever. Like, it's amazing how what is probably the greatest book ever written, arguably, all the blueprints are there for Kubrick to make his own adaptation, and it's, you know, the perfect horror movie, the perfect film altogether. And Stephen King pretty much just takes the exact same stuff and they make it into this awful miniseries that's just like nothing works.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because like Kubrick's was just so goddamn good that the Stephen King version could have never worked. But
There are certain things you can do in a book that you can't do in a movie, and I guess certain changes had to be made. And other changes too, like maybe Stephen King had like a different idea of the character, but Kubrick had his own idea, and he took that story and kind of molded that around his own idea to come up with something the same but different, and ultimately better, in my view, anyway.
It just doesn't, like, Kubrick just makes you, like, there's something about his version that is so, like, uneasy, whereas the Stephen King version is just so over the top and in your face that it doesn't work.
Well, King was, like, notorious for that.
Yeah. And a lot of his, but, like, that has worked so well in other places. Why doesn't it work in his version of The Shining? Like, there are times when, I'll look at something in Stephen King's work. It's like he just has the most fucked up imagination ever. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with It.
Yeah.
There's the scene in the movie and the book where the little girl is brushing her teeth and she starts talking to dead kids in the drain.
Oh yeah.
And then like this balloon of blood comes out. Like, who thinks of that?
Some guy on a lot of drugs.
Yeah, I think he was when he wrote It.
Yeah, like, he was for I want to say a majority of his career.
I think right around It is when he got sober completely.
I think he said he doesn't even remember writing Cujo.
Yeah,
he doesn't remember it at all. Apparently, he wrote The Running Man in like 3 days.
I'm lucky if I can write a paragraph in a month.
Yeah.
This guy is like publishing books, dying from drug overdose.
The whole reason he had a pseudonym, Richard Bachman, when he wrote like Thinner, I think was one of them, and The Running Man was another. His publishing contract, he could only publish 2 books a year, or something like that. So
well, that's publishing houses can only publish so many books a year, and if they have
per author, yeah,
and if they have this author that's just like really good, that's generating a lot of money, it's like, well, we can't just publish all of your stuff, so like they probably contracted him to 2 a year. So it's like, I don't know.
We got all these other ones.
You know, what's he gonna do? Sit around and not write a book in 3 days?
Yeah.
I can write like 2,000 words in a day.
Yes, Stephen King writes, like, I can write 1,000 words in a week. Stephen King writes 1,000 pages in a week.
Apparently he only writes 2,000 words a day, like, minimum. Because, have you read On Writing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his process is, he treats it like an 8-hour.
Yeah. Well, it is his
job.
job. Like,
Yeah.
You can't not treat it that way.
Like, he puts 48 hours a week into writing. So, like, you are gonna, if you have the talent and you're putting 48 hours into that talent a week, you're gonna generate.
Yeah, what's that rule? The 10,000 hours before you really get good at anything?
Yeah.
But, I mean, the more you do anything, the better you get.
Especially with writing. I mean, I've been told a million times, like, you need to write, like, 6 books before you even, like, have an idea of how to do it correctly.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's the same for making movies, too. There aren't too many examples of filmmakers they make one movie and it's just amazing. Like, their first thing is unbelievable. Like, not even Citizen Kane. Like, that wasn't even the first thing Orson Welles did, like, film-wise. Like, he had unfinished projects that there is footage of if you scour the internet looking for it, and there's a lot of things that eventually went into Citizen Kane that he figured out first in his unfinished works.
I'm still not really sold on Citizen. I have seen Citizen Kane so many times.
Really.
And
I think it's one of the most perfect movies. That is probably the most beautiful black and white movie.
Really?
Oh yeah, just the
Psycho?
No, I'd actually give Citizen Kane the edge.
Wow.
I'd even put Raging Bull above Psycho for just the look of the movie.
Raging Bull is a very interesting look to it. But Citizen Kane, like I said, I've seen it I don't know how many times. And I'll never say I don't like Citizen Kane, but like I'm just waiting to find in Citizen Kane what everybody else sees in it, in terms of how great it is. And I don't know why I can't like just see what's so great about it. And I don't know if it's people just think it's so great because of how innovative it was.
It was extremely innovative. Like, everything about that movie is at least 2 decades ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Just the cinematography, the way it was shot. I mean, even the acting was better than, like, it's still, for the most part, believable today. A lot of movies from the 1940s, like early 40s, that was the film's infancy in sound, anyway.
It's like, I just don't know if it's innovative enough in its techniques for me to really latch on to it the way everybody else has.
I think it's.
No,
I think it's fantastic.
I really think Orson Welles, in a lot of ways, was just kind of bigger than himself. Like, it's because of who he was. Like, that's what. Like, F for Fake drives me nuts. It's like, I get it. Editing.
I like that for Fake. I think his best movie, honestly, if it's not Citizen Kane, it's Touch of Evil.
Yeah, that is his best movie. I think it's better than Citizen Kane. I like it a lot more than Citizen Kane.
Barry Lyndon's not your... If that's your second favorite Kubrick, what's your first?
Oh, 2001.
Yeah, that's...
It's just
my number one
greatest
is...
movie ever made.
Yeah, it has to be. 2001, it has to be the best movie ever made. There's no argument against it.
And that was a movie that was like, I'd say that Eyes Wide Shut was one I didn't like when I initially saw it. 2001, I hated the first 2 times I saw it.
Really?
And I was just like, what the fuck is it about this movie? This is no good. This is boring. This is just bullshit. And now it's like, I'm still finding different things about it. I've seen it a million times.
Oh yeah, there's so many different interpretations. When I first saw 2001, I was very young, and it just happened to be on. Like, I wasn't watching it, somebody else was watching. And I think it was the scene where Dave is going to unplug Hal, and it's that really crazy, like, from the floor up shot of Dave, like, opening the door, and the camera's, like, moving around, like, almost like it's floating, like, on a layer of water, like, at Dave's feet or whatever. It's really, really strange shot, and I remember, like, even at a young age, I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. And the sound design, like, the breathing in the helmet, and Hal's voice just still so calm, even though he's about to die, basically. It's like, wow, what is this movie? And when I eventually saw it start to finish, I was older and able to appreciate film more. So I think I kind of went into it almost already liking it, even though I didn't really see it. But yeah, I have to say 2001's best movie ever. Like, you can't make a better movie.
If you ever get the chance to see it actually on a film print in a theater, it's just like, oh my god, there's like no better feeling in the world. And fuck it, I'll say it anyway. The last time I'd seen it in a theater, on a film print, it's the only time I've seen it in a theater with a film print. These two Asian women sitting behind me that just kept talking for the whole thing. It ruined it. Anybody who talks in a movie ruins it. But it was actually kind of funny in hindsight, like what they were like. They didn't like Hal. They're like, oh, he's bad. These two Asian women don't like Hal, whereas Hal is actually like the most sympathetic character.
Yeah, how did these two people find their way into a
what are they doing in here?
That's like if...
Why are they here?
It's like a huge sporting event, like attended by somebody who hates sports. They just paid all the money and got their ticket anyway.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're moving the ball.
Yeah.
How come they're not scoring?
Why are they running the clock down?
Somebody hit somebody.
But even that, somebody else ruined it too by in the opening with the music. He started humming along with the music. It's just like, why? We get it. You're here. We know you like it.
I've never seen a film in theaters that had already been released prior. That was like being re-shown or for whatever, like a exhibition. I've never done that because I know somebody's going to do something stupid, like quote the big quotes out loud and think he's a genius as he does it, and I'm just going to wish I had a weapon on me at the time, but be thankful that I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, on one hand, it sounds like you're just uptight in a situation like that, but it's like, if I've seen 2001, it's not the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not the Big Lebowski. There's a time and a place for...
Yeah, audience participation, like if it's Mystery Science Theater or whatever they call it now.
Riff tracks.
Yeah, that's it. But if you're watching a classic...
Watching Apocalypse Now, like, you don't have to...
Yeah, I don't want the guy next to me saying, like...
Oh, I love the smell of napalm. Surfboards!
Yeah.
It's...
Certain movies that... I think every movie, essentially, but certain ones more than others, you really have to... You should pay attention to the whole thing. You shouldn't be talking to your friend. You shouldn't be text messaging people. You shouldn't be looking on your phone or what. Like, if you're not watching the movie, then you're not watching the movie. You're doing something else. Yeah. And you miss that part of the movie. And that could be, like, an essential part of the story or, like, the character's arc and his development. And if you don't see that at the moment, if your attention's drawn to something else, then you're just totally going to miss the whole point of the movie and walk out of it thinking it's stupid.
I've never understood the paying, especially with how expensive movies are now.
Oh, yeah. Why would you pay so much to...
Yeah, pay and just to, like, go there and...
Play on your phone.
Yeah, to talk through it. Like, never... That, to me, is insanity. Like, I don't know if it's just because I know how overpriced movies are, and it's just I actually am there to, like, sit back and quietly take everything in. It's just a foreign concept to me to, like, spend all that money and go in there and just... Like, it's not only to ruin it for everyone, but ruin it for yourself. It's just odd.
Yeah, because you're paying all that money to go in there and play on your phone. You're not watching the movie, which is what you paid for. It's the same thing, essentially, like you leave a sporting event before it's over. You paid a couple $100.
Or leave a
to get
concert
there.
before it's over. I never understood that.
Yeah. Everybody wants to beat the traffic. Well, you're becoming traffic. You're not beating it. If you stick around for the whole thing and wait for all those people that left early to get the hell out of your way,
Yeah.
there would be no traffic.
Yeah.
If I'm paying $300 to go see a football game, they're gonna have to kick me out.
Yeah. Fuck, I'm going to a concert. I'm staying there and hoping they come out. Like the band comes out, and I can meet them. Right?
Yeah, right.
I'm not leaving early.
Yeah, that's happened to me many times.
There's always a loudmouth in the theater. And they always think they're some kind of hero. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. The theater experience today is not what it used to be. People used to like dress up to go to movies.
Oh yeah. Wait, I never quite understood that, but
Yeah, I don't know. Just a different time.
I want to go see It Follows in the movies. I'm gonna do that tomorrow.
I heard nothing but good things about it. I don't even know what it's about. I don't really want to know either.
Yeah.
I'd rather just, discover it on my own. If I do go to a theater, though, I'm going first thing in the morning when all the kids are at school, or late at night when all the kids are asleep in bed.
No children allowed in movie theaters.
Yeah, I think if you have like a young child, you should be allowed to pirate movies.
There you go.
Yeah. No, don't. Just stay home.
download
It's
them
better for
directly.
everyone. Just stay home.
I would love to see Clockwork Orange
In the theater.
in the theater on a film print. I ruined the one opportunity I ever had. But I saw Rosemary's Baby instead.
That's a beautiful movie.
Kind of made up for it. There's just like no. It's night and day between digital and film. And film just like kicks digital's ass. It just leaves
There's
it in a pile of oil like Daniel Day-Lewis does to Paul Dano and There'll Be Blood.
Yeah, definitely in theaters too. I mean, the digital projection is garbage. I haven't seen a movie yet this year. It's like April because I don't feel like paying all that money to go watch something that looks like less than DVD quality.
Yeah.
Why would I do that? I'll stay home and watch Clockwork Orange on Blu-ray.
I don't know. It just looks better on film. It's just I can't think of anything that like when it looks better on digital.
Certain time, I think Michael Mann does it pretty well.
Yeah.
Certain directors can pull it off in a way that it fits. It might not look better, but like it's better for the movie. You know what I mean? Clockwork Orange I've seen so many times, I don't have to go to the theater to see that. I could just play the movie in my head at this point.
It's funny how I've seen Clockwork Orange. Like I associate singing in the rain with Clockwork Orange than I do with singing in the rain.
Yeah, right?
Which is odd. That's really cool how they took like an iconic thing and made it more iconic
Oh, yeah.
in a different way.
Even Beethoven. When I hear
Yeah.
Ludwig von, or however he pronounces it,
Ludwig van.
yeah, that's such a great movie.
Oh, what's so stinking about it? It's a stinking world because there's no law and order.
That's a movie that, I mean, for its time, that was controversial.
This still is.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know
even-
how
even
that movie's, like I said, the movie should be illegal.
You know what's crazy to think about is just how popular some of Kubrick's movies were.
Mm-hmm.
He's making these movies like A Clockwork Orange. Like you're not supposed to identify with this character.
No, and you do.
Everybody watches his movies and loves them.
Yeah,
He's the most popular art house filmmaker of all time.
he really is.
He bridged the gap between like art and mainstream. Probably better than anybody.
God, the set design in this movie. I'm just gonna pick a random scene here.
You can pause a Kubrick movie at any point. It's
It's like a
perfect desktop
perfect
background.
composition. Yeah.
I think that comes from his background as like a.
Look at, I'm just
still
randomly picking things here, and it's every one is like a perfect composition.
Well. But you've not been to school all week, son.
Got to get fit.
There's a snake on
Otherwise,
his
I'm
I love
liable to
that.
miss a lot more school.
This makes him so like evil and demonic.
Yeah, I think Kubrick's background as a still photographer was really what made like his movies stand out visually. Because he knew like perspective, and he knew how to use angles, and he knew composition. He knew like what to keep in frame, what to put out, how to like move characters within it, where to position props. Nobody did that better than Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I would hated to be his DP. Like,
Well,
it's like ultimately, if you're his DP, I think you're the guy that's holding the camera.
You're his bitch. Like,
Yeah.
he tells you exactly how to do your job.
Enjoying that, are you, my darling?
Record store.
Bit cold and pointless, isn't it, my lovely?
Ugh, he's so obnoxious.
Have you not everything you need? If you need a motor car, you pluck it from the trees. If Zunka.
Clockwork Orange was the first film poster I ever bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. I think I got lost in my room.
The bum recognizes him.
Ultimately, though, like, for a good part of the second half of the film, Alex isn't like a relatable character. Like, you know that he went, like, he did terrible things, but he was reformed, but in like a very not so good way where you kind of feel bad for him.
I've never seen you before. This is the poisonous young swine.
It's also he's tortured.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see that happen to anybody, even somebody as bad as him.
I love that the camera starts on one side of the underpass, goes through the underpass, and comes out the other side. I love
It was
that.
old age having a go at youth, and I daren't do a single solitary thing of my brother's. It seemed better to be hit at like that than want to sick and feel that horrible pain.
Oh no!
This movie kind of feels like a 70s movie. I mean, just the...
It looks like a Monty Python sketch, I always thought.
Yeah, it kind of does. Very straight. Like, 2001, that's like more of a timeless movie to me. Like, that could...
Yeah.
It doesn't look like 1968 at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, 2001, I don't know if it's just because it's supposed to be a futuristic quality. It doesn't look like it was a movie made in the 60s.
Even, like, if you look at...
Evoking 60s style.
Yeah, if you look at movies made today that are set in the future, like Interstellar, that looks like a movie made today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't look like timeless.
Yeah.
And to think about, like, Kubrick made this movie, like, let's say 67, it was released in 68, so a majority of the work was done. 1967, even today, all those decades later, to create something that still feels realistic, because, like we said before, that movie has, like, Skype and iPads in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we have today. So could you think 30 years from now in the future what we're going to have and be right in any way?
Yeah, that Kubrick had already done in the 2001.
Yeah, how did...
It seems to me like if I were the person responsible for inventing space travel, I would just be like, alright, I'm just going to look at a clock, or 2001, and see what they did first.
Yeah, I mean, you could even ask scientists who specialize in this thing, like, what are we going to have 30 years from now? And they're just going to be like, I got no idea.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. I mean, there is a lot more technology today. It's advancing quicker than ever. But still, that's such a prescient movie. Just how it predicted so many things, and even like some technical aspects. Like they were questioned for a number of years, and then science came along and said, no, it's actually kind of right. Like when Dave shoots himself into the airlock without a helmet on, like could he survive? Well, yeah, apparently he can.
Mm-hmm. The only thing he got wrong was the color of the Earth.
Really?
Yeah, color of the Earth's the only thing they get wrong in it, and it's understandable because at the time they made it, there were no pictures of the Earth yet.
That's true.
And everybody just assumed it would have been blue because of the atmosphere. So.
Well, if you look at the end of the movie, when the Star Child's like looking at the Earth, there are no continents on the Earth. There's just pure blue.
They just thought it would have, because of the atmosphere, you only would have seen blue and clouds. That's funny how... No, not quite. You could see everything through the atmosphere.
Oh, maybe that was done intentionally, too.
Perhaps.
Could just be a fuck up.
I love how they're like eating... I don't even know what you would call it. Like, some more of this green stuff.
Oh, that paste?
Yeah.
Yeah, did we talk about it before on a different podcast where how like food played such a role in this movie?
Yeah, in all of his movies, isn't it?
I know.
Talked about that. We've talked about that.
2001 especially, like every major development, like plot development in 2001
involves food.
Like they're either the scene like during, before, or after is somebody eating in some way.
I love the way his characters eat in the movie, in like movies too.
Like Alex at the end of Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, the way he chews, and
eating his
the way he eats his breakfast.
Eating his eggy wigs.
I think there's got to be more like the Russian ambassador when he's at the buffet in the. First of all, I love that there's a buffet in the war room too.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else has ever caught on to that, but like, why is there a buffet in the war room?
Dr. Strangelove was honestly like one of my least favorite Kubrick movies for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was. Maybe because I knew it was a comedy, even though like maybe at the time it was.
Man, Drake, I thought I told you to turn all the radios off at this base.
It's still a great movie, but I will watch 2001, Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Eyes Wide Shut, Castle, like almost anything else first.
Over
Dr. Strangelove, yeah.
Strangelove always reminds me, because he's in it, but man, Kubrick worked with George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking cool.
He worked with
Google's in that movie too.
Well, maybe it's because the movie's obvious with itself. Like it kind of all the humor is mostly meant to be funny, and there's that's the whole point of the movie. It's not about like anything else. It's just a comedy, dark comedy. But there aren't too many like levels to go, like to dig deeper into that. I mean, certain times, yeah, but overall, like not the same way as 2001 or The Shining. Like those movies are just you can watch it 500 times and find something new in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if Doctor Strange was the same way. Maybe I'm just not giving it like enough credit. Maybe I just need to see it like 499 more times.
Yeah. It's just a goddamn funny movie. Like with the, I forget how Peter Sellers says it when they're talking about why they would have built a doomsday machine. And the president asks him like, "Do we have anything like this?" And he's like, "No, we looked into it, but we felt the whole thing was counterproductive for reasons which at this time are probably all too obvious."
There there are moments in that movie that are just laugh out loud hilarious. Like Peter Sellers on the phone with Dimitri.
Yeah.
Like when Dimitri's
Dimitri.
like having a party in the background or something. I can't remember the context, but
Yeah, he's... What is the Russian ambassador
can you
calls
perhaps turn the music down?
Yes, Dimitri. Dimitri, like, could you just turn the music down? Well, of course I like calling you Dimitri. I've just been busy. Okay, well, I'm fine. And you're fine. Okay, we're both... Well, you know how we've always talked about something going wrong with the bomb, Dimitri.
There are a lot of long scenes in Doctor Strangelove. I didn't realize that until like maybe the third time I saw it. There are long, long scenes where it's just like that scene, and then it goes on to the next scene, and like I don't know. That's really weird though.
Yeah.
It doesn't really happen in movies.
It's like 10-minute scene after another.
Kubrick uses long takes too.
Yeah.
Which I love. I don't like editing if there doesn't have to be editing.
Peter Sellers' performance as Doctor Strangelove reminds me a lot of Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
Like when he goes, he tells the Russian ambassador, like, the whole point of having a doomsday machine doesn't work if you don't tell anybody about it, so why did you tell the world, huh?
Right.
Like we were gonna announce it 2 days.
The only Kubrick movie I did not see of his principal catalog is Lolita.
It's another one of his best movies.
I've heard nothing but good things. I heard even the remake was good. But yeah, I just...
That's a beautifully shot black and white movie.
Isn't that like 3 hours long?
No.
Really?
No, Lolita's
Is it shorter?
short. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Spartacus is long.
Yeah. Paths of Glory is short as hell.
Yeah.
It's not even 90 minutes, I don't think.
Yeah. Paths of Glory you can knock out on a lunch break.
Yeah. That is
Lolita.
beautifully shot. Black and white movie.
Paths of Glory.
Oh, yeah.
All of his stuff. The Killing, Fear and Desire, Killer's Kiss or whatever it's called.
Killer's Kiss was good. Yeah, that's a very short movie, like 70 minutes maybe, like film noir.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments in that movie where the shots are just so perfect that I remember one example. I only saw the movie once, but I can't forget the scene where there's like a mirror involved, and one character's in the mirror, and there's other things in the foreground, like not in the mirror. And the way that the shot is set up and just the focal length and composition, it looks like three-dimensional. It looks like 3D without glasses.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think he made that so young in his career. And what else is crazy, too, is Spartacus was his first color movie, but that wasn't really his movie.
Yeah, no,
Like
it wasn't.
he kind of came onto that project.
He was brought on to finish it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So his first movie in color was 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, like his first actual movie.
Yeah. That's insane.
Like he made a color movie, then made a few more black and white movies.
Yeah, I don't consider Spartacus to be like directed by Stanley Kubrick. Like he gets the credit, like in the credits, but
Like it's not a Kubrick film the way it was.
no, it doesn't have his touch and like all the themes and the meaning behind things and just the way it was shot. It's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie, but it's not a Kubrick movie.
Yeah. It's just a really good movie that Kubrick made.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'd like to call it like a side project.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like his. If this was music, like all like Paths of Glory, Lolita, Doctor Strangelove, like these are his albums.
Yeah.
But then he went off
He
to
did
do
like
a guest part on this other guy's
he did,
album.
yeah, he did like a dual project with Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, yeah. I think The Killing probably it might be Kubrick's most underrated movie.
It's a really neat movie. It's very the way the script is structured. It's so out there.
Oh yeah, that's another movie too. Like You could tell it was early in his career, but that's definitely a Kubrick movie, even though it's not as involved or, let's say, in depth as some of his later work.
Mm-hmm.
You could still tell, like, it has his stamp on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a way Spartacus doesn't.
There's a shot in, like, where they go into this restaurant, like, early on in the movie. It almost looks like a Steadicam shot, like, years before the Steadicam was even invented.
I love the shot where the guy walks into that chess hall.
In the mirror, and
Yeah.
it pulls out.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of that.
It's like, wow. I watched that movie not too long ago after I bought the Blu-ray. And I saw that and I just had to go back and rewind it. Like, I never rewind scenes in movies.
I know, right?
Chicken, Leo, you wouldn't believe it anyway.
It's this shot here when they come into this
Only to get to become a flip.
great narration, too.
It's a hard thing to get narration in a movie, right?
It's an interesting this shot, like,
Same Saturday afternoon in September, in another part of the city, Patrolman First Class Randy Kennan had some personal business to attend to.
like, you'd swear it was a Steadicam.
Yeah, right? Just like on a dolly track.
See you later.
A lot of panning.
Great music. It's kind of like he's zooming and pushing in at the same time.
Let's see you say chicken, Leo. You
Like,
wouldn't
look at
believe
that
it
shot, how
anyway.
it's like,
I suppose.
Very expressionist lighting.
yeah.
There's a similar type of shot in... Did you see the original Scarface?
No, I don't know if I saw the original.
I think it's the opening shot of that movie, actually. It's just like a long dolly shot, but it just goes on and on and on. This movie was made in like 1931. And just that one shot alone was so far ahead of its time. Like, this was before Citizen Kane, like, by a decade.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I saw that and I was just blown away. And then the rest of the movie is basically, like, every scene somebody getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's way more violent than the remake.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It is a
What year
violent,
was
violent movie.
Original Scarface?
I think 1931.
Really?
Yeah.
But, like, here in 56, like, he's starting with their shot, like, you'd swear it was a exterior long shot.
It's just looking out a window.
Yeah. And then
It doesn't look like it, though.
Yeah, no.
Until you pan...
It pans to the right, and now we're in, like, a medium shot, dollying back from a guy coming toward the camera in a dark location. And then it pans into, like, another, like, just wide shot with, like, you said, like, expressionistic lighting, with this perfect piano music, like, you just get the vibe of the bar.
You don't realize, looking at this shot today, knowing the technology that we have today, like, yeah, you could do that with Steadicam easily,
Yeah.
but that's a complicated shot for the
Whatever-
technology that
yeah,
they
what
had.
they had.
Yeah, wow.
And when you think about it, like, now that I look, it's just kind of him going like this with what ultimately...
It's essentially a huge pan with, like, a dolly movement in the middle.
It's almost like, yeah, he has like a U-shaped dolly track where it's kind of like here, and then pull back and pan, and then like you pan again and stop, and then kind of push in and zoom and come down. It's a weird shot. Again, lit from the table.
Let's see you say chicken, Leo. You wouldn't believe it anyway.
You know what's great about that, too, is creative camera work like that, too.
Did they play with?
It's in a movie that's... It's just like a heist movie. Like, there's nothing
Mhm.
special about it.
Yeah.
Other than, for the time, the jumbled narrate, like taking everything out of chronological order. That was very unique for its time.
Yeah.
And I think originally the movie was recut. And
It was,
And
yeah.
then the voiceover just didn't work at all.
Yeah. The way they recut it, they didn't like it. This shot here.
At 10:15 on a Tuesday
Oh,
morning,
yeah, in the mirror.
Johnny Clay began the final preparation.
That blew my mind when I saw that. I had no idea what was happening.
You want somebody to play with? No, thanks.
You watch like any other genre piece
You lads.
like today, you're not going to see camera work like that.
No.
There's no director's going to think
Neat little shots like that.
or take the time and the effort to do that.
I'm trying to find that shot where Stanley hit as a cop. I thought I locked all you guinea hoods up.
Film noir, though, I mean, that was famous for its creativity, just in so many ways.
It's almost like a staple now of film noir that you gotta have the long present with a gun in it.
Yeah.
You see that all the time now. Why would he take it out of the present? I don't know, he takes it out of the guitar case to put it in a present, but why don't you just take the guitar case with you?
Maybe they didn't put guitars on the racetrack back then?
This shot's really cool.
Who's he gonna bring giant flowers to on a racetrack anyway?
For the horse. When they win, they throw them at them.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
This shot's
Obviously,
so cool.
don't go to the racetrack often. That's another great shot. Like, you don't know where the camera is.
No dolly track. Well, yeah, you can kind of see the marks on the floor from where the wheels are moving. But it's not on a track.
No.
Oh no, it's not the marks. It's the shadow from the. Oh my god. Yeah, no dolly track.
Yeah, it's just on wheels.
It was 9:20 when he arrived at Mike's apartment. So far, everything had gone off according to plan.
Kate, you're off.
There are other Kubrick films too, like that I haven't seen. But I don't really. I wouldn't really consider them as like part of his primary catalog either. Like Killer's Kiss. That's probably like the boundary.
Yeah.
And then Fear and Desire, Day of the Fight, Flying Padre. Didn't see any of those.
Yeah, they're all just.
The Seafarers was garbage. I didn't like that at all. That's another thing. Like, you could tell, like, somebody, like, Kubrick needed money to fund Killer's Kiss, maybe, and he had to do this shitty documentary.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, whatever.
Like, you want to play with a camera, and they said, we'll let you if you do this for us.
And he didn't put any more thought or creativity into it than anybody else could have. Obviously his heart wasn't in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just to make money to make his next movie. Sometimes that's just what you have to do, though. The Killing I would consider to be like his first real feature-length movie.
Yeah. It is. I mean, Killer's Kiss is just a bonus feature
on the Blu-ray. Yeah,
on the Killing's Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's a good movie too, Killer's Kiss. Just for what it is, it's not going to change the world. But, man, it's just a good, little film noir.
It's amazing what New York looks like in that movie compared to Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's real New York in Killer's Kiss, and then by the time he's in Eyes Wide Shut, he was just allowed to build his own New York.
Yeah, what year? Killer's Kiss came out in 55. That was uncommon to shoot on location then. Because even
reminds me a lot of On the Waterfront for some reason.
Yeah, the look of that movie, they're very similar. It reminds me somewhat of Sweet Smell of Success, because that was shot on location in New York, and that's just a grimy, dirty, filthy, beautiful movie. What would you say is your least favorite Kubrick?
Least favorite Kubrick film?
Not counting Spartacus.
Maybe Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, you know what? I hate to say it, but I might have to agree.
And not that Full Metal Jacket. We're kind of phrasing it Full Metal Jacket is the bad one of them. I'm like, no, Full Metal Jacket is still better than every other movie ever made. But
it's the worst 5-star movie.
Yeah,
that Stanley Kubrick made.
It's just my least favorite Kubrick film compared. I love Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah, so do I.
And I'll watch Full Metal Jacket a million times, and I think Full Metal Jacket is one of the greatest movies ever made. But in terms of Kubrick's filmography, I rank it below
lower end of the spectrum.
Lolita. Yeah. I
gotta see Lolita.
I think I would go.
I don't even think that's out on Blu-ray, and if it is, it's
Lolita?
usually expensive.
Yeah, it's
because if I don't
It's
know.
usually a part of the collection.
Yeah. Actually, it is released on its own. 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm with it. Yeah, usually it's like $15, $16 for one movie with no extras. That's I don't know. To me, that's a lot for most people. It's probably just like whatever. But I'm really cheap.
I love when I get like
because like if the movie's going to be on sale for $10 in a couple months, why buy it now?
yeah.
Why not wait?
I just got a really cheap version of Minority Report, but it has no bonus features whatsoever.
That's beautiful looking Blu-ray though,
Yeah.
and just a movie overall. There's really unique look to that.
Oh, that movie's just out of control.
You know, we talked this whole time mostly about Stanley Kubrick. I would say though, like Steven Spielberg he's way up there, one of the greatest directors of all time. I honestly think he's underrated.
Really?
Yeah, because when people
He
make
is the
lists,
antithesis to Kubrick, I think.
he's the mainstream Kubrick, basically. The mainstream Kubrick who made a lot of weak movies.
Mm-hmm.
But you have
He's
to
much more prolific.
Oh yeah. You have to remember though, like Spielberg. He made Jaws, he made Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, all like E.T., Close Encounters. He made so many masterpiece movies that are still loved today. I don't know if he really gets the credit he deserves for that. Because when you look at a list of greatest film directors of all time, Kubrick's at the top, Hitchcock's at the top. You'll probably see John Ford on there, Kurosawa. You don't see Steven Spielberg.
He's there, but he's always behind.
Do you think like all of his weaker like movies like The Terminal have hurt that in any way? Like if he was less prolific,
Yes, I think so. I think,
if you took out all his lesser films and you just had
that's how I feel about Woody Allen.
oh yeah, that guy
It's
just
that
he has an addiction to making movies.
yeah, he's made so many that he's bound to have a bunch of bad ones. And Woody Allen has had bad movies, but Woody Allen has also made some of the best movies.
Yeah, he's done great work. But when I think of Woody Allen, I just think of the last movie of his that I saw. I don't know, maybe I'm weird. With Kubrick, I think of like everything. Like there's so many of his movies are all on the same level. You can't put one, or you can't like single out just three of them. Like these are better than these, but no, they're not. They're just as good.
Yeah.
Totally different movies, but they're just as good.
The other thing too, it seems like the more prolific you are, the more like you're gonna have something bad in there. Whereas Kubrick took his time, and I'm noticing this now with Malick, where when he started making a movie every year now, it seems that's when like he had kind of the weakest film of his.
To the Wonder?
Yeah, To the Wonder.
I agree. That is easily his weakest movie. It's still great. I still love it. But it's not on the same level of Days of Heaven.
Yeah, no.
It's not The Thin Red Line.
It's like when you have like a 4-year gap or whatever the hell it was between Days of Heaven and The Thin Red Line, it was, like, yeah, Thin Red Line's going to be good, but if it was like a movie every year, it's going to be bad. Not that To the Wonder is bad, but...
Yeah, no, it's not a bad movie, but for a director of his caliber, you expect something more.
It was too much like... Maybe if it was shot like differently than The Tree of Life. Like his movies...
It does seem like it was compiled out of like Tree of Life outtakes and like subplots that were cut away.
Yeah, it seems like if we actually followed Sean Penn in The Tree of Life, rather than go back in time.
Maybe Lubezki had something to do with that too. He has a very distinct style when he works with Terrence Malick. I don't know if that's because that's what Malick wants from him. But I'm curious to see if what his movies would look like if he worked with who is the cinematographer in The Thin Red Line? John Toll? If they worked together again, what would a newer Malick movie look like?
That movie is
another one. Like, I just feel like I'm on an island on this hill. And I love how they said that the violence they wanted to show, they wanted it to be against the Earth rather than against other humans.
Yeah, that's why
And
when
it works so well.
people get blown up by grenades, like, you don't see blood on them.
You just see the dirt flying up and all
Yeah.
that. But that was really interesting artistic choice.
Yeah,
It works so well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When you see those wide shots of, like, carpet bombing or whatever's going on, there's no people there. You don't see people. You just see, like, the ground is being destroyed.
Mm-hmm. And I love the same with the enemy soldiers are hidden in the high grass. You just kind of see bullets flying out of the high grass. You don't really see the soldiers who are shooting at them. I think the only time that you're really, during the whole battle scene where you actually see an enemy soldier is that shot when it kind of pulls back into the bunker. You see the hand come up to the gun and cock it back.
I think there's a couple moments. I know, like, definitely in the aftermath.
Yeah.
You see, I love that shot of, like, that face that's half buried with the smoke coming over it. Oh, man.
That's a weird movie, too.
I'm curious to see the next Terrence Malick, though.
Knight of Cups?
Yeah. Is that R-rated?
I think so.
That'll be interesting if it is.
Why?
Has he really done, like, an R-rated movie before?
Well, Thin Red Line.
That was mostly for violence, though, not, like, more adult themes.
Well, I mean, Knight of Cups just looks like it will be.
Yeah, it looks
R-rated.
like it can easily be, but that's something that maybe I think worked against To the Wonder, where it's the same stuff that he said before in other movies, but now he's just saying it again with different characters.
It seems similar to like what he's talking about in the Tree of Life.
Yeah, like his head was at the same, like, in the same place while he was making both those movies. Like, he didn't have the time to, like, decompress from his last movie and find, like, a new. Is this the trailer?
Yeah.
All those years, living the life of someone I didn't even know.
There's some naked women in
Let me
this
tell
already.
you about you. I want to make you rich. You see the palm trees?
It seems more.
They tell you anything's possible.
The only word I can think of is adult.
about
Yeah, it seems to look like Wall Street.
Yeah, except good.
Different these days. What's going on with you?
I can't remember a man I wanted to be.
It's not musical.
Just don't threaten me with leaving, okay?
Terrence Malick.
Do what you want to do.
You don't want music.
You want a love experience.
There are lake flavors. Sometimes you want raspberry, then after a while you want some strawberry.
You have love in you.
I think this has potential to be, like, on par with this episode.
Yeah.
Suppose it isn't there for me.
Now it's
I was afraid when I was young.
Oh, there were definitely those.
Afraid of life.
I know a lot of people listen to it, but I think nobody uses voiceover. This was
Once the soul was perfect and had wings,
it's all just like
soar
quotes
into
out
heaven.
for, like, little ideas. Not describing the movie.
You gave me peace. Joy.
That goes over a lot of people's heads, though. Like, it's when most people go to the theater,
Find your
they're not
way
expecting to, like, think.
Mhm.
Like, really use their head to be challenged by
to light.
philosophical thoughts.
Remember.
Yeah.
Like, if you could open your mind to it, Terrence Malick is on, like, a whole different level of movie making.
Because nobody's really making stuff like that.
No, not at all. Maybe, like, super independent, that, like, movies that we don't even know about.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to see Knight of Cups.
I think I mentioned it on the one we did about upcoming films for this year, that's probably one of the like my top two. Like that and Pixar's Inside Out.
For sure.
I still haven't seen a movie this year though.
I always saw Kingsman.
I have my ticket for Fast and Furious 7, and I just have to print it out.
Oh, that's cool.
I never went to it yet. I rewatched 6 though.
Really?
Have you seen it? No, I think that's right. You said
Stop at 2.
Yeah. 5's probably the best. 1 and 5. You could skip 3 and 4. Like you don't have to watch them.
Yeah.
4 especially is totally worthless. One of the worst movies I've ever seen, ever. I can't believe the same writer, the same director made the 5th movie. It is like a night and day difference.
Really?
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick, he was a unique filmmaker.
Ahead of everybody else, above everybody else, beyond everybody else.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard to definitively say like any one director is better than the other, because everybody's doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has different strengths, and
everybody's not Kubrick.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, could Kubrick have made Rear Window as well as Hitchcock?
Yeah, no,
probably not. Could Hitchcock have done A Clockwork Orange? No.
Kubrick was very vocal about stuff like that too. Like he wishes he had been able to have made better movies that were like movies he had seen, like a Woody Allen movie or a Scorsese movie. Like I think he like wished he had made Eraserhead.
Yeah, I remember that quote.
Can you imagine that? Like your first movie is Eraserhead, and Stanley Kubrick wishes he had made it. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do.
Like, I don't need to do anything else. I've already achieved everything.
What kind of burden would that be, though? Like, if you make a movie, like, all right, I'd say this is your first film, and it's, for the sake of argument, it's Eraserhead, and it's a great movie, and you're super happy with it, and everybody else is super happy, and Stanley Kubrick says, like, I wish I made that. Like, what is going through your head as you're making your second movie?
Yeah. And then, like, your third movie's Dune.
Yeah. What was the second? The Elephant Man was the
Elephant Man was the second movie.
Honestly, though, that might have been, like, an absolute moment of genius for David Lynch to not make another surreal movie and to just tell a story. Because after something like Eraserhead, like, how do you top that? Like, how do you go from that to that again, but better?
Yeah.
He was almost destined to fail unless he did something different.
But with, like, Elephant Man, it's a straightforward story, but it's still... He keeps a lot of the same elements that are very much David Lynchian.
Oh, yeah, it's still weird as hell.
Yeah.
But it's a narrative.
Yeah. It's so accessible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally, like, it's a mainstream movie.
Yeah.
And it was directed by David Lynch and produced by Mel Brooks.
Yeah. That's probably, I think, why it's so mainstream and appealing, is because Mel Brooks' involvement. See, David Lynch is not made. Like, I think The Elephant Man is his own, maybe The Straight Story. Those are the only movies he's made that
Or, like, narratively based.
Yeah, straightforward, but also like have that mainstream appeal. Maybe Eraserhead because of its cult status.
Yeah, it's not a mainstream movie. Like like my mom's not gonna like that movie.
Yeah.
She might like The Straight Story though.
Yeah. But certainly not Wild at Heart. Certainly not Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me.
Blue Velvet. It's kind of like straightforward in a way, but extremely weird in other ways.
I mean, like, Eraserhead and Blue Velvet aren't mainstream movies, but I could see them having mainstream appeal because of their cult status.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of another filmmaker who really bridged that gap between art and entertainment in the way Kubrick did. Because who doesn't love Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah.
But that's an art movie. Like, that's, in my view anyway, an art house film. Like, all of his movies were.
People like to say Nolan, I think to a degree, but not...
He's not an art house filmmaker.
Not
in any way
Stanley
whatsoever.
Kubrick was.
Christopher Nolan makes art the same way Brett Ratner makes art. In that they don't
Yeah, like he makes big ideas, but
Christopher Nolan's movies make people think they're smart because just of the way that they're written and the way that they're designed. Because they might present these big ideas, but they don't capitalize on them. They don't make them functional within the story or within the framework. And every Christopher Nolan movie's based on, like, it's plot based. It's not 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, Interstellar is not 2001: A Space Odyssey.
no matter how hard it wants to be.
No. I would like to see somebody else, like, write a script for Christopher Nolan, because, I mean, that has happened before with Insomnia. That was just something he was given by the studio. But now that he's grown as a filmmaker, or at least changed as a filmmaker, I don't think he's really grown all that much. Like, he's still working with the same ideas in presenting them the same way. I want to see somebody give him a script, and I want to see him make that his own. Because a lot of people, like, especially his fans, don't like Insomnia. They don't feel like it's one of his movies, and, like, he doesn't put his directorial stamp on it because, in my view, it's because he shoots so plainly, like, just so generic in the way that he frames the shot. You're not going to see that in a Kubrick movie. You're not going to see that in a Hitchcock movie. You're not going to see that in a Spielberg movie, or Kurosawa, or Billy Wilder.
Very true.
Any of the great filmmakers. That to me is one of the primary reasons why Nolan's not in that category, and he never will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you think of what his what his masterpieces are, and other than Inception, it's really the Batman movies, but just somebody else's creation.
It's okay. I mean, like, Kubrick just adapted novels. Like, it's okay to do that, but you have to put your stamp on it. If you can't do that with the camera, with the editing, with...
But even, with the Batman movies, like, his are just more faithful adaptations of the comic books than the other. It's almost like his adaptations were always forced to be compared to other people's adaptations, and with the exception of Tim Burton's, who were similar to Nolan's in that it was a faithful adaptation with a person's certain style, where that's what Nolan did with his. It was a faithful adaptation with his style. Whereas the rest of them weren't. Like, it was just more campy nonsense.
In relation to the comic books, yeah, they were pretty dark at times. Graphic novels, like, they're very dark. I think Tim Burton's Batman, like the original Batman movie, not the original 50s or 60s, whatever, but Tim Burton's original Batman movie, that's, to me, is how you almost have to present that story, because it's a ninja billionaire running around dressed as a bat. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's almost exaggerated in a way, in the same way that theater is exaggerated, because it has to be. And if you watch Tim Burton's Batman, think of it as like a stage performance, and the movie just totally makes sense, because there's like high-flying, high-wire stunts and painted backdrops, and it's all exaggerated in like a very theatrical way.
It's just an expressionist version of Batman.
I don't think Batman or what was the second one?
Batman Returns.
Batman Returns, yeah. I don't think that one was done as well. That's just more of like a straightforward movie that just wasn't as good.
Not as much, like, there's a certain mystery to Batman in Batman, whereas in Batman Returns, that mystery's not really there.
No, it's all plot-based. Like, that's the focus, and that's what drives the narrative. It's Batman's almost like a secondary character in that. It's really about Penguin.
Yeah.
And the movie opens with Penguin.
Well, it's the same with Batman's in a lot of ways more about the Joker than... I think the villains get more screen time than...
Batman's always had great villains.
The Batman in Batman. The original Batman movies. Oh yeah, his villains are better than everybody's villains. Maybe Spider-Man is the only one who comes close to having.
Yeah, he has a good like
Similar.
rogues gallery of enemies to go through. But they're all. I mean, the Joker's just perfect for Batman because the Joker's the opposite of Batman in every way. Especially in Tim Burton's movie. If you watch that, every single thing about Batman in that movie, if you turn it over on its head, it's reflected the same way in the Joker. Like, Batman has the Batmobile, and Joker has his own car, and Batman has his flying thing, and Joker has his helicopter. Batman has his gadgets, Joker has his gadgets. Batman has to put on a mask to go out so nobody knows his true identity. Joker has to put on makeup to have human identity. It's perfectly done. It's absolutely perfect.
It'd be cool to see Kubrick do a superhero movie.
I don't even know if I could process that. Like, what would that even look like? It would look
Who
like
would he even have like done? It seems like Batman would have been good for him.
Yeah, and the duality of man.
Yeah.
Kubrick really excelled in every genre of movie.
Yeah.
Like
He
that
set the bar for every genre. Like if he didn't make a western, but if he did, it would have been
the greatest film ever.
Yeah, like the top western ever made.
Stanley Kubrick western.
That'd be cool.
Wow, yeah, that's unbelievable.
Surprised he never made a western.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's strange. It's crazy though for him to make a horror movie with no experience in the genre at all, and to make probably the best horror movie ever. When you look at that genre, all the best movies are made by all the greatest directors of all time. It's hard to make a horror movie that good unless you are that good. Like Rosemary's Baby was Roman Polanski, and he was great. Psycho was Hitchcock, he was great. Jaws was Spielberg, he's great.
Exorcist was freaking.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's the only people who have made horror movies are the really great people, or just like the really nerdy, like gore fest kind of people.
They're either made by the greatest directors of all time, or these independent filmmakers that just did it, like George Romero and John Carpenter.
Yeah. It's like Brett Ratner's not making a horror movie. McGee's not making a horror movie.
No. McG. Fuck that guy. Can't take anyone seriously unless they have like a first name.
His first name's Mick and his last name's G.
His name's 3 letters. I would like to see Kurosawa do a horror movie.
Yeah, he just kind of did weird action movies.
Made like a bunch of westerns and film noir. Westerns disguised as samurai movies, of course.
Yeah.
And Shakespeare adaptations.
Westerns in Western culture.
Yeah.
Samurai in Eastern culture.
It's crazy. Like his movies were inspired by westerns, which
and Shakespeare.
yeah. He watched westerns. He made movies, and his movies inspired more westerns.
Yeah, that's weird. And sci-fi. Because he inspired Star Wars.
Oh yeah, huge inspiration for Star Wars. I did watch The Hidden Fortress a couple years ago. I don't remember really falling in love with that movie. Like not the same way as Seven Samurai or High and Low.
I think Rashomon is just best movie ever made.
Yeah, that's
a great
groundbreaking. I think that's the first movie that ever cinema movie where an instance where the camera was pointed directly at the sun, and the sun was shown in a film. I could be wrong about that.
Probably. Just the exterior shooting style was innovative in that.
Yeah. Everything about that movie is innovative.
Yeah.
even today, like
Movie's out of control.
Kurosawa is one of those directors. Like if you just like took him out of cinema's history, like you're taking away so many other movies.
It's like the
you can't
building
even,
is just gonna fall down.
Yeah, he was a load-bearing pillar in the development of movies.
He's a very important part of foundation.
Yeah.
It's like you take him and Kubrick out, and it's just we're lost.
You think Kubrick was that important though?
Oh yeah.
'Cause I can't. I'm struggling to think of a movie that I know was influenced by Kubrick without the director telling me, like, "Oh, I'm a huge Kubrick fan." Maybe I'm just not thinking clearly.
I think because of his influence on filmmakers, because of his innovation, because of his mentality to experiment, sort of push things further.
I think
because so many of his things are so like kind of became the staple for the way we do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And because he curated the finest inspiration himself from people who came before him, like Ophuls and Abel Gance and Griffith.
I just had a thought, and now it's gone. You know, maybe Kubrick, his influence was more in getting people into film and just finding their own path. Because that's essentially what he did. Like, he didn't follow a certain formula. Like, most filmmakers, like, when Kubrick became popular in the 50s, 60s, like, when he really started becoming himself, maybe not popular, but, like, he was branching out in all these different genres. Nobody really did that before. Like, Hitchcock was the thriller guy, and Billy Wilder wrote comedy and film noir, and Kurosawa did samurai westerns and Shakespeare.
Yeah. It's like you knew Hitchcock would be like, what's the next sort of edgier seat, creepy thriller?
Yeah.
Whereas Kubrick was like, I don't know what I want to do next. I'm just going to wait for the right story.
Yeah, he blazed his own trail. And yeah, maybe somebody did that before him, but nobody as well known.
Yeah, I mean, he just sort of really embodies that spirit of,
I think,
just don't give a fuck.
I think that method of filmmaking was that's reflected in Steven Spielberg a lot, because he does his own thing. He does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to calculate, though, like, who was influenced by Stanley Kubrick in some way.
It's like everybody. So you ask, it's like when you ask, as much as I hate to say it, when you ask bands like who they like, it's always like you always hear like Led Zeppelin in there.
Greatest cover band of all time.
Yeah.
The Beatles.
Yeah, so you hear these certain, it's like everybody's always like, yeah, well, Kubrick was. And if not Kubrick, at least one of his movies.
Oh yeah, everybody says one or more at a time. But like, you look at Christopher Nolan's movies, like he says he's influenced by Stanley Kubrick. I don't see that reflected in his work.
He just says that because he thinks it's cool.
Yeah, I don't see him doing long tracking shots or just using the
steady cam.
Yeah, or doing anything like artistic in as a director. You know what I mean?
I don't see the Kubrick. Like I definitely see the 2001 and Interstellar, but I don't see the Shining.
In the story, like at parts of the storytelling, yeah. Like he wanted to make 2001, but like with a grand, deep, super out there finish with all you know. I don't even know what I'm saying, but like he couldn't pull it off because in order to do that, you have to make an art film. You can't make just like a mainstream movie.
Yeah. I don't see the Kubrick and Fincher either. People say Fincher's a lot like Kubrick.
I don't think their films are similar.
Yeah, maybe with the way they light things sometimes.
I don't know. I think maybe because Fincher is just popular. and Kubrick was popular, people just associate them with. Fincher is making movies differently than most mainstream filmmakers. His style is a little more reserved. Like, he will hold on shots, and he will have just static shots where everybody wants to move the camera and cut around. And
Yeah, and his stuff is way more, I think, he does kind of embrace bleakness a lot more than Kubrick does. Kubrick's films are much more optimistic, I think.
Oh, yeah, Fincher's movies are... Wow, they leave like a sour taste in your mouth. I feel like I have to take a shower after I see them. I haven't really been big on Fincher lately.
He hasn't made... Gone Girl was great, but I enjoyed Gone Girl.
I didn't. I think Fincher's the last movie of his that I want to watch again was Zodiac. Because
That's a great movie.
I don't agree with the way it was told. Like, I have different ways that I would have told that story. Maybe it might have worked better, it might have been terrible. I don't know, but just visually, like we were saying before, Barry Lyndon, like, you just watch that movie with the sound off as you're doing other things and just like look up and just be like, whoa. Like, Zodiac's like that at certain times. Not the whole thing, but there are moments where like just sit there and like, wow, look at that shot. That's amazing. Like, that's creative.
Yeah.
I think that's missing from a lot of his later work. Because Gone Girl was very reserved in the way it was shot. It was almost shot like a TV show. Just like network TV almost, with excellent color grading and cinematography.
It's just, it was better.
Except for that scene.
It was all really good people making a Lifetime movie.
Yeah, except for that scene with Neil Patrick Harris at the end, like his last scene. I love the way that was shot and edited and just lit. Everything about that, like, that was creative, that was artistic. That was a filmmaker operating on a level above, like, what normal, regular, mediocre filmmakers are doing. I think Kubrick's career as a whole, he was on that level. Like, in everything that he did. Every shot, every scene, every moment, every film. I'm still waiting for Christopher Nolan to get on that level.
Well, he's been there. He'll get there someday. That's all I really have for now. Do you have a recommendation?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think of that. Why don't you go first while I think of something?
I'm going to recommend Robert Altman's MASH, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. Super funny.
Is that after the TV show?
That was before the TV show.
That was before.
So it was a different cast completely. Alan Alda was in the TV show, and Donald Sutherland is in the movie. But it's just super funny, super dark, and just, I don't know how they got away with making that movie.
I haven't seen it. I'm really, like, terrible at keeping up with watching Robert Altman movies.
Well, if you're looking for somewhere to start, I suggest MASH.
Alright, well, I still don't have a recommendation. So, I would say The Man from Nowhere, which I said last week, because that's expiring on Netflix very soon, probably. It's already gone by the time you hear this.
Do you have a Kubrick film you want to recommend?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that makes total sense. I'll recommend The Killing, because I don't think it gets the recognition it deserves. It seems to be... I mean, now that the Criterion Blu-ray has come out, it's finding a new audience.
Mm-hmm.
People who haven't really known about it or haven't given it the same appreciation as some of his other work. But I think it's fantastic. I love the way it was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Love the storytelling. It's a great example of telling a story out of order in the right way. And I wish there was a way to like put all those scenes together. Like if somebody's already done that, I want to see the movie in chronological order just to see what it would be like.
Without the narration.
It's such like a tight movie. There's no
Yeah.
fat on it whatsoever.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And yeah, you know, I can't think of what I would cut out of it, what I would do differently. It's just such a tight movie. So that's my recommendation, The Killing.
So everybody needs to go out there and watch MASH and The Killing. There's a drive-in out there somewhere, I think.
Showing both of them right now.
That is showing both of those films on a double feature.